Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to this episode of The Dream Life. On today with our big dreamer, huge achiever, manager, publisher, A&R, and former VP of Roc Nation Latino, and now the creator and founder of Neon 16, Lex Borrero is here with us today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I was like, Lex is one of my friends. We actually met after the Bad Bunny, J Balvin concert. Actually, it was the Bad Bunny concert.
Bad Bunny, yeah.
And J Balvin came out and performed. And there was an awesome after party before the club that was going down at Balvin's house. He was there and we actually connected off of amazing conversation, and he has a beautiful brain, and that's why I wanted to bring him here on The Dream Life. He's a big dreamer, like I said, and I know I haven't let you talk. So say hi to the people.
Oh, listen, first of all, thank you for having me. We always have great convo, so I'm excited about, this conversation and being a part of this podcast.
Well, I'm actually really excited to get to know more about you. I know you, but I feel like a lot of the vlogs that I've read about you, it's a lot about your accomplishments, which are a lot of them. But let's kind of start off with your foundation, because I believe that that's a really important part, especially on building. So what was your childhood like? Where do you, tell me about, where were you born?
So I was born in Bogota, and I grew up in Bogota until I was about 6-7 years old. My father was a race car driver. My mother was just a businesswoman, and they met in college and, hit the spark. And my mom was a hot-blooded Latin woman,
Love
super
that.
high class, like don't look at me and don't touch me kind of vibe. And my dad is kind of the complete opposite. He's like a white version of me with blue eyes. I'm like, God, I wish you would have gave me the blue eyes. But he is really calm and funny and very active, and I think a lot of the personality that I have is
your dad's.
Is my dad's. But a lot of the courage and intensity and like perseverance that I have is definitely come from my mother.
So you guys moved at age 6 or 7. Where did you go
So from Bogota, I moved to Miami
wow.
with my mother and my sister, and we kind of started this new life in the U.S. And I didn't know any English, so I went to ESOL classes.
I could so picture this.
Yeah. And I had like nice curly blonde hair.
Stop it! You're a Rubio?
I was blonde,
wow.
like your hair. So it's really interesting getting it mixed in the culture of what's going on in Miami.
Was it hard for you to adjust to Miami?
I think so, yeah. At first it was. A lot of it because I didn't truly understand culturally what was going on.
Right.
I think in Colombia.
And that's a really important time too. That age, 6-7 years old, you're developing a lot of character skills, and that actually for supposedly the first 7 years are really important in a child's development of how they.
I developed. Let me tell you, I learned a lot about life in those years, those early years in Miami. But I've always been a really social person, so very quickly I made friends.
So when did you get into music? Like when you were a child, I'm assuming that it starts young, because it usually does, and I know that you started in the business at 16 years old. Yeah. So when did you start getting, or who brought music into your life?
I mean, music was always a part of my life. My mom is from the coast of Colombia, where they throw these huge parties and they're a part. But to be 100% honest, I never wanted to do music. Like it was not.
Really?
My dream. It was not a desire. There's those kids that get the music bug and they want to be artists as they're little and they perform. And
yeah,
that wasn't me.
I've seen those.
Yeah, for me it was about creation. Like I wanted to be an architect. I loved art, as you can tell, and I love the concept of creating something. And for me at that time, early on, it was about like Michael Jordan and Michael Jackson. Like I loved the concept that they were the best at what they did. And I was intrigued by the power of influence. I love that their talents allowed them to influence people in a way that was impactful to culture. So to me, that's kind of what drew me to, I guess, overall entertainment. Like I saw like Michael Jordan, I wanted his sneakers. Like I loved that. And then I loved that Michael Jackson was like almost this God figure at the time. It's like you were like untouchable of how amazing the things he was doing. So I love that influence aspect of it, and I wanted to be influential in my life. My mom always used to tell me before I went to sleep, like, you're going to be somebody great. You're going to be, and I believed it. And so that's where it started.
Amazing. That's actually a common denominator, I feel like, with some of the people that I interview that have been able to achieve a lot of success, even from coming from, you know, hard backgrounds, or, you know, maybe coming from poverty, and their moms or someone in their life that really believed in them, kind of instilling this message that they're meant for something, that they had purpose in their life. It kind of, they carry this purpose, and I think that that's so important. But someone always does it. Maybe you don't have a family, like maybe you was an orphan or something like that, but there's always somebody kind of in your path that sees something in you, or you hope.
I mean, I think purpose is important. It's what we're all searching, right? I think, and that doesn't discriminate on age. I think you're going to find people that are 45-year-olds that are still trying to find their purpose in lives, and then you find kids that are really young that just find it. So I think it's the search, and so I think anytime you can instill purpose or a sense of purpose in a kid's life, you're going to radically affect that kid's
And sometimes people think that those comments are so insignificant, you know, because it's a kid, they're not going to remember, but those insignificant things actually make huge impact, because look at you, you know, you still remember those nights. That's crazy. That's awesome. So then you just really wanted to be a powerful, influential man at this point, and you're like a child already recognizing that as power. Influence is power is really what you were correlating. And so now fast forward, you're 15, 16 years old, you wanting to become like this powerful figure. What are some of the obstacles like you encountered, or how did you first think that you could obtain what you wanted?
I mean, I think right away I was faced with obstacles, right? Like, I think you're faced with obstacles trying to define what that means, right? Because as a kid, even as a teenager, I think the hardest thing that any teenager goes through is figuring out how to connect the dots in their life to truly accomplish what they see their dream, like their dream perfect life being. So, I mean, right away, I think that's the first obstacle, like defining what that was. And I had the privilege of growing up with a mother who was a pastor, so automatically I saw some sort of example of leadership, right? So when
accountability, purpose, it's
and good moral standing, like good understanding of like how to deal with people and how to deal with people's problems,
and doing things for the right reasons,
and be welcoming to people, right? Because I think that's a huge part of being successful, is you can't think you know it all. You can't think that you're the brightest star in the sky, because it blocks you from truly understanding how every person can ultimately help you reach your dreams. So as growing up, I would say that was the first obstacle, is really defining what I wanted to do and how that meant. And at first, you know, I was a youth pastor, and that taught me a lot about, again, engaging youth and being impactful in their lives.
I can imagine you had to get on stage and talk in front of a lot of people.
And find
and create a message. No?
Find a good way to tell the message, right? Because it was an era in...
That's a lot of communication. So that's, you learned how to communicate really young.
And again, a lot of obstacles, because there's already like a prejudgment about church. If you're a young person, I mean, we all were there. Like, we're like,
we all have our ideas
church,
about it.
Bump that, you know, I don't want to do that. But finding a way to relate with young people about utilizing subjects from the Bible and teachings from the Bible, but that they can apply it to their everyday life, that was a challenge, and it's something that allowed me to really grow and mature as a man, and figure out how to connect with all kind of people. And then after that, honestly, I went through a transition of multiple things. I've always been a very creative person, so as I started to get closer to my teen years and going into high school, it was a lot of like, I started like a company, and I wanted to do like this Christian music label that was doing Christian music, but it was just positive, so it wouldn't be churchy, so the people that didn't go to church would listen to it. And that taught me so many obstacles, and I got stabbed in the back, and I learned a lot. I mean, I went through the process. Then in high school, I wanted to host the homecoming dance, and I had this artist that I was working with, and I booked him, and the artist sucked, and everybody in school made fun of me. Like, it was like the running joke. Like, I mean, you know, at the end of the year, when they do all the presentations of all the great things that have happened at the year, they like mocked the homecoming. It was really bad. And the worst part of it was like, I had this girl who I had a huge crush on, and she went that day, and she saw me really stressed and crying, and I was like, this sucks. Oh, no. This is the worst. But you know, it all teaches you character. It teaches you to not give up. It taught me a lot about again, what I thought was right.
How to handle loss.
And how to handle a loss, how to handle embarrassment, how to handle the failure. And ultimately...
Wow, that's such a young age.
Yeah.
You're a high school kid dealing with all those feelings. That's a lot.
And all the pressure of trying to be like, you know, you still want to be cool and you still want to, and thankfully, like, again, I've never been socially awkward. So I've been able to always have good friends and talk and stuff. But still, it was like, at that point, that was my dream, right? I was like, I'm going to come to school. Homecoming is going to be amazing. And then it was a flopper. It was like a really bad flopper, okay?
Why?
But it led me to the next day, and it led me to ultimately figuring out that I wanted to do music and that I wanted to be in this.
So in that moment that you had all that, like, sadness, basically, I'm sure you're feeling a little depressed at that the next morning waking up. How did you kind of brush yourself off and gain the courage to try again? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening also are maybe in that place, or maybe it's coming for them. How do you deal with that, or how did you? It's
funny because I've never really shared this story. This is like a real exclusive. You just got like a, you know, top of the line Barbara Walters story here. You know, funny enough, I went through the pain of it because the very next day, like the week after, me and my friend who put it together, we didn't go to school. We wrote the school a letter of how they had done us wrong. Like, it was like intense. My mom was like, oh my God, what's going on? But I realized sooner than later that I had to go back to school, that life kept on going, you know? And one of the things that I tell my employees now when I have to correct them on something, and sometimes I have to be really stern, and they maybe get sad or they get emotional, I always tell them, wear the pain on your back, not on your heart. Because if you wear it in your heart, it's gonna mess the way it's gonna affect the way you make decisions. It's gonna affect the way that you look at things. It's gonna change your personality. It's gonna change everything because your emotion will control that. If you wear it on your back, it's gonna inspire you to say, you know what? Something else just happened. I had to brush it off, but I gotta keep going. And to be clear, I mean, most people, when you look at motivational speakers or you look at anything that tells you keep going, it's always like, you know, brush your shoulders off, it's gonna be all good. The reality is that's not a real like way to advise somebody, because as we all know, when you go through a breakup, a hard time, it's not that easy to brush it off.
No.
All you gotta deal with the pain, but you gotta deal with it not here, back here. Because it's back here, you can carry it, right? Here is really hard. You know, like you do a lot of working out, and it's a lot harder to push something here than push it with as you're running and you have your whole weight here, because it's just human physics.
Right.
So same thing with your emotions, and that's what it was for me. It was like sooner or later I learned that as the week went by and I had written all the letters to school, and I was embarrassed, and I was like, thank God there was no social media back then.
Real.
Now that would have been trending and that would have been bad, but there was no social media. I think it was MySpace at most. But I figured I had to go back to school, and I had to keep going, and I had to keep trying. And it's funny because, you know, I got a message the other day from a girl that used to go to school with me, and she wrote me this very inspiring message because she said, you know, I get to tell my daughter now that I went to school with you and that I saw the whole process, you know?
That literally just gave me chills everywhere, I
swear.
Wow.
I mean, the day I saw that screenshot, I was like, oh my God, this is like such amazing. And she invited me to her daughter's first year birthday, and I was like, amazing, so impactful. That, again, like back to the beginning of the story, is my ultimate goal here wasn't to make money or be famous or have accomplishments or plaques or whatever. It was to impact people. And to be at a position where you feel that that's happened is like the biggest blessing I can say.
No, I think that just you talking about that moment, and then right after having like a message, like one of those people that went to school with you, that is, and it's true, because your music is everywhere. You know, your label, your partners, everything that you guys touch right now is like the hottest stuff everywhere. So they can really, the people that went to school with you really can't get away from you. And I'm sure now the ones that laughed at you and mocked you, they're probably listening to you and dancing to your songs, and some of them don't even know it. But the ones that do know it, and most importantly, you know it. Yeah. So I think that's really dope. But so you had all these things happen, but let's start. So what was like your first success then? So that was like a little flop.
Yeah.
And then after that, you went on to do what?
I mean, there was a long transition between that, right? I ultimately ended up signing an artist at 16, and that artist got a distribution deal with Universal.
Wow.
And then and that this part of it is like, there's tons of articles on this, and I want to try to give you all the stories I don't normally say, because we're friends, and I actually, like I said, I've never told this story about school, which is really funny. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think my first success came at the age of 18 when I got like my first check as a producer in the music business, and it was given by this A&R who was named Jeremy, and it was Tommy Boy Records at the time. And he got me my first check. It was $1,000, and I thought I made it. I was lit. I'm rich. I was like baller, but really it wasn't a lot of money. But it kind of certified that I was good enough to make it, you know. And then that led me to other opportunities where I got to manage some big artists, and I started creating kind of a name for myself while still hustling. Like I used to stand outside of Sony Studios. And you're all
in high school at this point? You're still in high school?
Still in high school.
This is crazy.
Still in high school. And then once I graduated high school, then I moved to New York and started working in New York. And
man, New York must have been a hard animal, right? Because it's very different from, you know, our beast over here in Miami. But New York is a beast.
It was like the first, I want to say the first month first month and a half, it was the most exciting place in the world for me. I was like, oh my God, I'm in New York City. I dreamed of this.
Beautiful.
You know, you go to all the record label buildings, and you're like, you know, you're a kid. You see this in the movies or like in the magazines. You never thought of walking into Def Jam or Universal. So being even around the building, even if you can't get in, because at the time I couldn't get in, okay, let's be clear. I was like, oh, let me in.
Touching the walls.
Touching the wall. So nice. But it really, it was like eye-opening. It made it feel real. And then it got real. And then it was like many days standing outside the Universal building. There was a Starbucks on the corner, and I would like, it was winter in New York, so I would like look outside and wait for somebody to go out for a smoke, and I would run, give them my beat CD, you know. Or Sony Studios at the time was like the premier recording studio in New York, and I would stand outside New York, like just outside of Sony Studios, giving them my beat CD, or interning at studios, and you know, finding my way through the music business. And it's been really interesting to see how a lot of those relationships.
That's so crazy because I'm sure, well, anybody listening that's been to New York has definitely seen those people that hand out CDs or whatever, listening to my mixtape or whatever it is, and that you are one of those kids handing out. Cause what was it, a CD? It
was a CD, and knocking on doors, and you know, it's full circle for me at this point in my career, because I now get to have these conversations. Like I had a conversation with someone the other day who's now an executive at one of the streaming companies, and he was like, dude, I googled your name on my phone the other day, like on my mail, and the mail came from like 2008, how you were pitching me these like beats for Ludacris.
Shut up.
And he's like, look at you now, right? He's like, that's why I respect you so much, because I've seen the growth.
Wow.
You know, or see so many of these producers who at the time were the hottest, like pitching me now music, or you know, it shows you that everything goes full circle. And that's why you have to have integrity.
There's a saying that I love that people, that, you know, on your way to the top, you know, that it's important the way you treat people, because on your way down, you see those people. So what happens is that a lot of times people don't have the sight to see that somebody has potential, or you just never know who's going to be the one that pops off, that takes it to another level. And then they're like, oh, maybe I should have been nicer to that person. Maybe I should have paid them attention and whatnot. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't believe in you, or maybe didn't see you as somebody worth their time, and now they want your time.
It's, you know, it happens, and I think that's why you got to treat all people good, right? I think the point of our conversation the day we met was that, which we were talking about, just being a good vibe, regardless of what it is, right? A lot of people miss that part of it, because it's very easy to become get in this box where you're not self-aware, where you think that you are the hottest thing in the world, or you are the best at this, or it's me and my friends. And that, I mean, that's something you deal with the moment you get into school all the way through now in adult life. Like everybody has their clique or your friend, and you prejudge people. And I've learned that the more you open up to people, the more you allow to be in a space where you can look at every person and say, how can I be helpful to this person? Whether it's, I meet you today, I never see you again, but I was able to give you a word of advice, or give you one word, or just be friendly. The more opportunities you have to be successful. because 99% of the relationships I have to this day, or the relationships that have helped me become successful,
Wow.
are relationships where I never came in with an interest. I never was like, what are you going to do for me? It was like, what can I do? Like, you want me to clean the floor? Dude, I'll clean the floor. You want me to take out the garbage? I'll take out the garbage. Or you need me to connect you with someone? I'll connect you with someone.
Right. Having a humble attitude. And at the end of the day, a million things can come from a simple hello. So sometimes you meet somebody sitting next to them in a plane, or, you know, out with your friends, not necessarily it's not being introvert and extrovert, but treating people nicely. I think that no matter how popular or like you are, because I think a lot of people, when you're walking in the streets and they smile back at you, it's like you never know how people are having those days. But I feel like you've been very humble this whole time. So let's talk about Roc Nation. Okay. Well, actually, since I know you very well, when was it that you got sick? Was it before Roc Nation or after Roc Nation? Or was it during?
No, it was before. It was before.
So you're now at a place where you're making money in the music industry. You're actually getting recognized. You went through all these things in New York. So how did you get in a position like before to get with Roc and all that stuff?
Well, I mean, I've had like many reinventions of myself in the
Manager,
17 years.
A&R, publisher, todo.
And I think it's always been affected by my personal life. You know, I think here's something I've never said in any other interview either. I think I'm giving you all the drops. You know,
the people need it.
Barbara Walters is in the house. But I, you know, again, one of the things that a lot of people forget is that, you know, no matter how successful you are, no matter how great of a leader you are, or how impactful you are as a person, you're still a person. You're human, right? And I go through the same emotional distress everybody goes through. I might handle it differently, but I go through it, right? Life is a roller coaster for everybody. Right. It's just whether you choose for it to be enjoyable and you're throwing your hands up and screaming like those people you see in the parks, or you're that person in the roller coaster throwing up and like dying because you're on the roller coaster. But the roller coaster, we all have to go through it. And so in my life, regardless of the success or whatever the things that have happened, and all the blessings that I've had a lot of ups and downs in my personal life, because unfortunately one of the things that I didn't learn early on was to focus on myself at some point, to balance my life in a way. And life is hard to balance, period, but to take care of myself. Yeah,
not put other people first. I'm sure with business and personal relationships.
It's hard. It's really, you know, successful people have a hard time balancing that because success takes a lot of your time. Yeah. And so it's true. Part of that process, you know, I've gone through failed relationships that have shifted my career and shifted my decisions.
You also were married really young, which a lot of people don't know that, because I guess, again, you don't talk about it, but I think that that's kind of funny because a lot of people think that to become successful, you have to be single or something like that. But I know that you were able to do all that stuff, even being married young, having kind of mini family at a very young age, and you still were able to stay focused. But now you're saying that it was really hard.
I mean, I think is that right? Like at that period of my career, that person who I was married to was incredibly important for me because it gave me stability. Right. I think, and that's, again, part of the process of life is appreciating where you're at and what you need in that space. Like single Lex at 23 years old with success would have been a hot mess. Right. Okay? That guy would have not been here today. Right. He would have been a really hot mess. It allowed me to have stability and something to come home and feel comfortable with.
You're moving so fast. I know that explosion in your career happened at a really young age, and everything changed.
And it worked for there. Like, it was perfect. And I think the same for her. Like, it was the perfect environment to allow us to develop as young people, right? As young adults coming into like knowing who you are and everything else. And then I think from there, my second stage of life was my health. You know, my health took a swing for the worse, and then that point of health allowed me to also find some stability, because it allowed me to understand that I couldn't work every day.
It forced you to take a step back and look at everything.
1,000%. It puts your life in perspective, because you start realizing a couple of things. One, that no matter how passionate you are for a client or a person that you work with or a company or an idea, like for me it's ideas, right? I'm such a creative person. I'm like every single day I'm coming up with something. And sometimes I'm so passionate about it.
Right.
But you start realizing that as passionate as you want to be for anything that you're doing, like at the end of the day, those things pass. But your life is what you got to deal with. Like when you're home alone, when you're like your health, like when, there's no money in the world that can pay for your health. And you see it as so many billionaires pass away from health issues.
The big, one of the most famous ones, Steve Jobs, and and it's literally the sickness that really affects so many. It affects so many people, but it's just something like that. Like exactly, like he couldn't buy another minute of his time. And for some of you listening, Lex here is a cancer survivor. Like you went through a lot, and I know that you were really close. Like you needed, and you got what you needed when you got it, and you're one of those fortunate, blessed people that are still here with us, and I'm grateful for you. But it's just, you never, like, if you look at you don't even talk about it. You don't even, and a lot of people that I know that are cancer survivors, they openly talk about it, and that kind of becomes a little bit of their identity, but you haven't used that to be a part of your identity at all. It's almost like you went through something, and you've gone through things like as a child, as going through so much change, going through failures in school, and then also going through such big things like this that you make sound so insignificant, so small. Like you fought for your life, you were you were married, you were divorced, you went through all these things emotionally, ups and downs, and then people from the outside is like, oh, Lex is so lucky, he look at him, he's making this money, he signed this talent, and people hating on you, and people maybe even feeling now like upset about your success that still don't understand what you've actually been through. Like you're a warrior, and that's one of the reasons why I adore you. You're a fighter. And that's worth mentioning, so that's why I mentioned it, because you're too humble, you're too like...
Oh, thank you. I think that the biggest thing is that I'm a human, right? And it's like, I go through the same things that everybody goes through. And a lot of people don't see that, because especially in today's age where you look at someone's pictures on social media, and to you feel super identified, and you're like, I know their whole life. Right. They're awesome. Yeah. They're beautiful. Like, she's incredible. I want to have her body, or I want to have her success. And it's very easy to look at that, but we're human. I think 95% of our conversations when we hang out are always about our human aspect, and not about our work or our social media. That's how we can actually relate,
because we all have like different little dreams or different things based off of so many different elements and circumstances. But like, I don't know. Like, I think that's what connects us. Like, is those natural, the human set of emotions. And like, that actually is one of, I feel like, my superpowers, that I'm able to kind of relate to people, and that I've been through so much experiences like you, that I can be like, yeah, I've been through something like that. Yeah. So,
and I think that's the biggest piece of being motivational, right? I think it's very nice to talk about the awards and talk about those things, and people feel like, okay, if he did it, he did. I can do it too. But I think the biggest key of motivation is like perseverance. Right. Because again, life's gonna hit us all. Right. And if there's something that someone can take from our conversation today, or that I would want them to take from this conversation, is perseverance. It's like, regardless of what comes your way, Do you think that that's
been the piece in your formula that's really made it successful, has been perseverance? Like, is that what? Yeah.
1,000%. Like, I don't take no for an answer, even from myself, and I don't let things. I'll go through pain. Like I said, I've cried many times alone, and we go through all these things, and I've sat in places that are really points of my life where I felt like, oh my God, like what's going on? But the perseverance of saying, this is for me. Right? Like, again, back to that, my mom saying, you're going to be something great. Yes. The purpose. I knew that this is my purpose in life. And I know, I know that what I have to give is important enough that I have to keep going. And so when you have that sense of purpose, the perseverance to keep going, it becomes almost second nature, because you're like, wait a second, quitting is not the option here. Like, if not everything that I've gone through is gone for vain.
It's all for nothing. Yeah, it's in vain. Absolutely. No, I love that. So now you're recovered. You're recovered, and Roc Nation just called you.
Well, as another point of my life, after my divorce, I moved to Toronto.
Oh, that's right.
To get
entrepreneur stuff,
a whole new perspective in life, and kind of try a different city. Which
you have a restaurant over there now, no?
So we have a restaurant, a resto bar called Regulars in Toronto,
nice.
As well as other businesses that we've done there. And I worked at Universal there, which was a very interesting environment as well. And
oh, nice.
And so in the midst of that, again, I caught a lot of perspective. It was a lot of my personal life. It was a lot of like seeing a whole new environment, learning from Canadian culture, figuring out what else I wanted to be involved in outside of music.
Nice.
And then ultimately, I got tired of the cold and said, you know, I'm going to move to Miami.
You're like, I got refreshed enough.
Yeah. And I moved to Miami, again, for another personal reason, because I realized that, you know, I had spent so much time away working that my family hadn't gotten any of my attention. So I didn't see my niece grow up. I, you know, hadn't seen my mom turn old. And I was like, you know, I want to go back home and feel like I'm normal outside of this industry environment. And so I moved to this apartment you're in today, and kind of sat in front of the ocean for 6 months, not doing much. Honestly, it was like, at first a little scary because I went from getting 300 emails a day to just getting a bunch of spam. I was like, hilarious. Wow, this sucks. Nobody wants to just send me talk to me. Right. But it started to give me a lot of perspective, and again, give me a lot of understanding on what I wanted out of life and what I didn't want out of life. And then ultimately, Roc Nation called and asked for me to help lead their Latin division and help kind of the new structure of the label. So I went in there and did that, and it was a great experience as well, because it allowed me to learn, again, another system. I love learning and seeing operations work.
And also, you've had the best like when you work for all these amazing businesses and you're able to create your own, you learn the infrastructure of these businesses, and you're able to learn from top level infrastructures, and then you can pick and take, like, oh, I don't like the way they did that there, and I love the way that they do this here, and you create your own. And in a sense, that's what you've continued to do throughout your life, is like create your own little paths.
Yeah. And you gotta, again, you have to know where you're standing to know where you're going. And a lot of people, a lot of young people, because I speak to a lot of teenagers that are like in the process, they see their 9-to-5 job and they're just like, oh, frustrated, I can't, and this, and I'm stuck. But the complaining does not help. Sometimes you have to understand, you know what, I'm in this position. This position is giving me my $2,000 a month or whatever it is, but what can I take from this position? How do I learn from who I am here? How do I learn character traits? How do I learn how to be responsible? And that teaches you, okay, now I'm self-aware. I'm here. What does step 2 looks like? Like, what do I want my life, now learning this and being the best that I possibly can at being the janitor. What does being the manager of the janitors look like? And then you can take that step. But the problem is, everybody sees the end goal. Everybody's like, I want to be, you know, the CEO of Roc Nation. And it's like,
but they don't want to go through that failure that you went through in high school.
And so they don't want to go through cleaning, and they don't want to go through like helping, and they don't want to go through all the hard stuff. And that's important. Even in my business now, you know, again, at this stage in my career where it's not driven by finance, it's not driven anything, I'll take the garbage out of my house.
But you know what? But I think that's how Neon 16 was actually born, because you were in a really powerful position when you were, you know, executive VP of a huge label that's, you know, recognized, and you were pretty much like set up. You were Gucci. Like, you didn't really have to do anything else, and you've already have a mega 15-year career that you have Grammys, awards, like your bathroom's filled with plaques. I saw some. I was like, oh, he did Riri? I was like, that's what's up. But so when you were encountered to like this decision with Roc Nation, like how did you decide to handle that?
I think it came naturally by figuring out what I wanted in life, right? And I think it all comes to quality of life at this point. What did I want to build, and did I feel like I've learned everything, right? No matter how hard any job that I've taken, whether it's been at a corporate company like Roc Nation or Universal, or whether it's been at my own company 1916 before, which we sold, like, it's always been like, what can I take out of this, and when am I at a point where I could say I'm ready to move forward, right? And I felt like I learned so much and a lot of great things at Roc that I felt to a position where I was like, you know what, now I understand from that perspective what I want to do in the Latin business, which was very different because even though I'm Latino and I'm from Bogota, I didn't start in the Latin business. I started in the pop business, in the American business. And it wasn't until the last 2 years where I've been fully involved in the Latin business, and Roc gave me that opportunity.
Explosion, and I mean, what a good time, and that was actually a great decision on their part because you signed like huge people. I mean, I really would like for you to tell us a few of them, but I know that you signed Lana Del Rey. I mean, you found like a bunch of amazing talent, and that's other questions that I wanted to ask you. Like, what do you look for in talent? But I'll ask you that later because I still okay. So then let's talk about what is Neon 16, because you guys have heard us talking about Neon 16, and so this is your record label, but I know that it's way more than that. It's an incubator of talent. So
yeah, Neon 16 came from the idea of wanting to utilize my relationship with Tiny and our friendship and our business partnership to kind of create a model that can show people to be successful while being able to be creatively free. Right. And from a business perspective, be able to operate with integrity and clarity and very upfront, right? Our business as a whole, especially the Latin business, because it's historically independent business, has had its way of kind of, no different than the hip hop business, very street, very way kind of sideways things to doing things, or very like, we own the artist for life. Right. Which is all, listen, it's all part of the way the business works.
Right. And but how for it's us, worked in the past. Because now you guys are making your new.
And how it's worked and how it's helped a lot of artists and executives and everything. And so I don't criticize the way that it was created.
Don't you feel like since you've worked at so many different positions, you've been able to kind of identify what are those major problems, like in a label, not just for the artists that are some of your friends, but then also on your end, and it's like, this is the way that it is.
Exactly that. I think that the biggest thing is I was able to take from all my experiences. Tiny has had a 16-year career as a producer and has gone through all the negative things that could happen to a producer and all the positive things. And we were able to come together and say, okay, now that we've learned all the lessons of what not to do, how do we create a company that does everything correctly and opposite, and it's creative and it moves the culture forward, and it's really impactful, and it's not just about making money, and it's not just about us buying cars and being the most successful, but it's about us being in a position where we can impact culture in everything that we do.
And I feel like that comes through because Tiny's in every single song on the radio. You know, like he did the whole entire Bad Bunny album. He did the new J Balvin and Bad Bunny album as well. Like he's amazing. And I mean, everybody that you guys work with is amazing. But I think that comes through, that it's like, it's not a fast, quick song. I mean, like there's, and also in Bad Bunny, the way that he writes and some of the writers that you guys have too, it's just, I feel like that's why you guys are actually like hitting the target every time, you know, because
we care. We care about the art that we're doing. Tiny cares about the art that he's doing in the studio. So the songs that are coming out are not by mistake. He loves and perfects what he does. And we perfect the way we present our business and the way we do our business and how we've created our infrastructure and our incubator and how we're developing talent.
Is it fair to say that you guys are on fire? Because I think you guys are on fire.
No, it is. So. It's fair to say. You know, I would say so.
I don't know.
Humbly say so that we're having our moment, and I think.
Mega moment.
Every company or every executive, every artist has their moment.
Every person that I ask, and I'm like, who would you like to work with? Tiny. They're like, Tiny. Yeah, it's just like they don't even know maybe what he looks like, but they just know that name. And it's also like in getting ready to interview you, I saw some of the articles and stuff that was written on you and about, you know, like everybody's blown away, and the way that they put it together, they're like Tiny and former Roc exec, and they try to like kind of sensationalize it, but it's dope. You guys have a story, which is, you guys both have individual stories and individual followings, really, you know, like cult-like followings that really love what you guys have done, and bringing together all this power, and not only power, but like humility, like artistry. And I think that leads me to my question is like, what do you think makes an artist an artist?
A couple things, right? I think first is an artistic identity. There's a lot of people with talent that doesn't mean they're artists, right? It's two very different things. Just like there's tons of people that can paint
right
and draw. That doesn't make you an artist, right? Like in this case, like, you know, we can look at D-Phase or anybody. It was his concept, his artistic concept that allowed him to be different, right? Because this painting could be done by many people. Anybody who can draw good can recreate this, but it's the concept that's important. So for an artist, it's the same thing. Like if you have a singer, there's a lot of singers,
right,
a lot of beautiful girls and handsome guys and talented dancers and et cetera, that can
abundantly. There's so many
sing.
beautiful girls.
Just like there's how many people go to Berkeley School of Music, and which is the premier school
right.
for music, and are incredible pianists, incredible musicians. That doesn't make you an artist. An artist has to have an identity. It has to have a reason for what you want to say. It has to create some sort of movement, because I think we all listen to music to define a moment in our lives.
Right.
Right? So a heartbreak song.
That's really true. That's like really freaking true. And there's this saying that I love, that it's like the music, I'll listen to music all the time, but when you're sad or when you're going through something, like you really understand the lyrics, you're like, that's what she meant.
Yeah.
Like
and a great artist and a great songwriter says what me and you are feeling and puts it in a way that we can't articulate it. So when they sing it, we're like, oh,
no,
that's what I
sometimes
meant.
the lyrics is like,
that's what I wanted. You felt my pain, you know, like, and just the same way. It's like when you're in the club or when you're somewhere, like I think Drake has made the career he's made because when you listen to his music, it has an identity that he's saying what we want to say. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Who doesn't want to say that? Like when you're at that moment in the club with the bottles and you're with your friends and that song comes on, you're like, holy crap. Or Tiny, for example, Calladita. And I was having this conversation with so many people. Calladita is the song of our generation, because you put that in a club and you turn the volume down, every girl sings it. And the reason for it is because he's describing the struggles and the ins and outs of what's being a girl in today's world. So he's identifying with you. Or Estamos Bien. I mean, I remember going through a breakup and playing that song, and I felt like I was like, Estamos Bien. You know, I was like, yeah, I was so hyped. You know, I was like, and it makes you feel better. Just like if you throw, you know, Drake's Mob Ties and you're a goon, like that record makes you feel a certain way. When you play that in the car, all of a sudden,
it's so true.
The drive becomes a little better. You know, you just like, your hair is that little. I don't have any hair, but yours.
You start feeling yourself.
And you start feeling yourself.
I've definitely left the gym, put on music, windows down. I'm like, shh, shh. I'm like.
So music identifies and creates the storyline for your life, and so you need artistry or artists that have something to say and can be defined and can help you define that moment. And the best artists are ones that are able to do that consistently, right? It's very easy to have a hit song. Somebody gave you a record.
I've heard that it's easy to get a hit. It's not easy to stay.
It's not easy to have a career. Hits, right? You know, it's not easy to be Drake.
Yeah.
You know, that pressure he has every time he goes in the studio, that's not easy. It's not easy to
22
be
songs.
J Balvin. It's not easy to be Bad Bunny. Like, they have to hone their emotions and figure out what they want to say and identify. Like, I think, I was talking about this the other day because Balvin is a close friend of mine. If Mi Gente would have happened 4 years before for Balvin, it wouldn't have done what it did. Like, Balvin was at the right stage of his career where he had already said enough of who he was, of who he is as an artist, of the struggle, of the time in place, that when it came out, it was impactful because it was his time. That song, for him, it was the moment of his career.
It was huge.
So for an artist, I would say that the first thing is you have to have identity. You have to have artistic identity. 2, you have to be very self-aware. You have to know who you are. Self-awareness is everything. If you're out here chasing what everybody else is doing, you lost the race.
Copycatting everybody, you're not creating your
You lost the race already. And 3rd, you have to have the work ethic. Character over talent, 10 out of 10 times. I've seen incredible, talented people throw away their careers because of lack of character.
So when you're looking at these people, and obviously you're just meeting them or whatnot, what are some of the things that you look for? So, you know, those are artists that when you get to know, so obviously you're looking for somebody that has that identity and that has obviously great sound. So what was your favorite find? Like, what was your favorite, or maybe, yeah, like, can you name some of the people that you've actually found or that you've signed? Because I know it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Some of your favorites.
Let me see. Honestly, I think some of my favorite people have been people that I ultimately have not signed.
Stop it. I was like,
I think are people that I thought that had it, and for whatever reason I wasn't able to sign it. So I don't know if I couldn't get the deal done or
so your favorites are the ones that got away.
Like, a little bit, but I think it's because some of those I saw certain things and I missed certain things, and so I learned from it, because when I've seen them then become successful, I'm like, wow, that part of it I missed. And there's other things where I've signed artists who I thought were incredibly successful,
right?
And I missed things that ultimately caused their careers to not go.
That's so crazy.
And so I ultimately,
you could have so much data.
Yeah,
and still you're 16 years in.
I think the biggest thing for me is still character, right? I feel like, yeah, I want talent and it speaks to me, but I have to see what I could do with them. Like,
and also if
I would say Tiny would be, I guess Tiny, even though I didn't make his original success, I think what we've done over the past year was me being able to identify his talent, his potential, and right away identify his growth and what I would do with it.
Right.
Because I think there's, just like there is certain artists for every listener, there's certain artists or talents for every executive. Not every manager could do what they do with their talent. Like, right. I don't know if I could manage Drake, you know? And he's the most talented. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Drake. I don't know if I could have managed an A&R a Drake. Like, you know, I think personality-wise, traits, like, it just might have not worked.
Right.
But with Tiny, and I think that's the biggest,
like,
everything was there. Like, we had a great friendship, which allowed us to have trust. And in this business, you gotta have trust between you and your client, or you and your artist, and because it's all in the ear of the beholder, right? It's like it's really, there is no right or wrong here. There's just opinions and ideas and things, right? And the rest, there's a procedure that could be right or wrong. Like, there's a structure to the business, but no one could tell you they have a hit record in their hands.
No one can tell you that they have a hit record in their hands?
No, you can tell that. I can tell you I have a great song.
Oh, I get what you're saying, that no one can, like, but I'm sure you hear that all the time.
Oh, yeah. And you can walk into a studio and you're like, oh, this is a hit. Like, it's an expression we use, but no one can guarantee you a hit. Like, there's no record label manager that can say, I can make this song a hit. There's so many aspects, and also luck that has to happen for a record to resonate to the point to be a hit.
That's true. I like that. So, worst thing you can do to, like, piss somebody off like you? Because I know that a lot of people listening, or, you know, maybe someone that wants to get into the music industry, they want someone like yours attention the same way you're outside of Starbucks freezing and passing out CDs to these executives. What is something that they shouldn't do? Because I know that some people are, like, really aggressive, or sometimes they do things que te caen mal and forever they're, like, dead to you. Like,
I think the biggest thing is that, like, if you ever approach a relationship, whether it's business or whether it's, you know, a personal relationship, with your hands out, you already started wrong. Right? Because at the end of the day, you're asking me to do something for you, and I don't know you anything. Right? So the biggest thing is, come in and approach the relationship with, what can I do for you? Right? I used to say this when I speak at panels. I'm like, how many people come up to me and give me CDs? How many of those people are like, hey, do you want coffee?
Right.
Like, can I buy you a coffee, like, there, and just give me 5 minutes of your time? Huge difference.
Right.
How many people are like, oh, dude, I noticed that you love sneakers at the last conference. So, you know what? Like, I saw this guy and I know this person, like, you know, go, or whatever it is, right? Like,
they weren't thinking about themselves in that moment. They actually were thinking about you, and they actually put thought behind it as well. It takes a sign of intelligence.
And it's seeing, also being able to see what we do. Like, if you look at our client base and you look at what we're doing, you might say, oh, I noticed that you have Tiny, but, you know, do you need a guitarist? Like, do you need a session? Can I take, and I take every meeting, by the way. I am, very few times do I get really pissed at someone who's approaching me, because I literally take almost every meeting, answer almost every DM. I go to every conference, and even after the panel is done, I find a way to go meet with the people, because I think it's important. You never know where you're going to run into. But there's definitely a way to approach it. There's definitely a way of like coming in and trying to figure out what's helpful or what you can offer instead of just asking me to give you something.
No, I agree with you 100%. I don't, there's even attitudes like that in far as friendships. Like I have friends that only hit me up when they want something. I have friends that literally only hit me up to let me know that they dropped a new song and here's my new song, here's the swipe up video, thank you, love you girl. I'm like, am I a part of your team? And I was like, I guess I am, I'll post it. No, like, you know, like it depends if it's home team, if it's friends you've had forever. But a lot of people do expect your support, and these are and nothing in return. But whatever. What would you have told young Lex? Like you, young Lex, coming to the US, like, you know, this bright bushy eye, you know, this kid that has all these dreams of being someone influential. What would you have told yourself as a younger you?
That's a good one. Regardless of how much you want success or impact or to impact people, focus on yourself as well. I think if there's one thing that I don't have any regrets, but that I would have liked to appreciate or miss was to focus a bit more on me, and focus a bit more of my time on what I think is valuable to having a fulfillment or fullness of life, is I should say.
Yeah, well-rounded.
And a content life, exactly.
Well-rounded, because I feel like you work so hard at certain different parts in your life. You work so hard, and it kind of sounds like you worked really hard since you were a kid. Yeah. And you're always trying to help, you know, other people. So it's kind of like you don't really take that much care of yourself. And I think that I feel like that's really important. I feel like the busyness and I feel like it's an illusion almost, you know, because everybody's in this rat race as far as like, you're never going to have enough. You're never going to be, you know, there's always someone better, taller, you know, skinnier or more achieved or maybe has more money. But it's just like this illusion that success will actually make you happy, and that it really just can turn into like almost like a sickness, because people, you know, pick up unhealthy habits, pick up things that are not even right. Like people, sometimes some of these motivational speakers, some of these people out here talking, they're giving people really bad habits. And you know, the team no sleep and the this and the that, and yeah, like, what do you mean team no sleep? You know, like I need to sleep, I need to eat, I need to take care of myself, or else it's not gonna go anywhere. You're gonna end up crazy. And so I think that that's a message that I learned myself the hard way as well, by getting sick in other ways. Just I've actually become physically sick, like with flus, because I work too hard, and I'm sure you've had those as well. So exactly, it's just like your body's like, no, and honestly, we shouldn't be doing that to our bodies. We should be really grateful for the vessels that we have to experience this life. Like we're blessed. But
1000%.
Last question. This is a really hard one. Okay, you ready? I'm ready. What's your favorite song right now, or favorite artist?
Favorite song right now.
I feel like a biased answer is gonna come out.
I want to say Calladita. No.
Calladita.
No. You know what? My favorite song right now is Selena's new song, "Lost You to Love Me," because it again, to that point of what we were talking about, identify it, like it resonated with me because the lyrical content is great, like the way she portrayed that moment for her, what it meant for her.
Wow.
It felt like an honest moment for that artist, and to me, that's real artistry. So I love that. Outside of that, honestly, one of my favorite artists, and I think he's so underrated, is John Bellion. Like John Bellion, his Human Condition album, and if you haven't listened to it, please go listen to it, because it will shift everything. It's like he makes the music that I live to every single day. I play his album at least 3 times a day.
Really?
And it's really it just resonates.
Well, you know that I haven't heard it. You have to play it.
Oh my God. It's incredible. And it's called The Human Condition for a reason, because he literally is talking about what we're all going through, and how we're going through, and how we look at the world, and why we need certain things. And it's just really great album. Outside of the fact that musically, he is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he is one of the best songwriter producers in the world. I mean, he wrote Memories by Maroon 5, that's out now too. He's incredible. Like, his sonics, his production.
And coming from you, I hope he hears this.
No, he's a friend, and I love him for this. But this is, I tell him all the time, I'm like, I'm waiting for new music. Stop taking so long, because you're messing me up. But I love his music, and I think he's so underrated for so many years. But he found a way, again, to describe what we're going through. And I would say for the last 3 years, he's identified or marked my life with his music. So
wow, that's amazing. And I think that that's exactly what we've been talking about, like a true artist. And I wanted, like, I've heard different artists kind of talk about it, like, oh, this is what a real artist is, or he's not a real artist, she's this, and there's like a debate that kind of goes on amongst the artists. But someone like you that literally manages the talent, helps them become who they are, what they are, and help them identify a lot of things. I wanted to see from your perspective, like, what you consider an artist, what do you look for, and all these things. But more than what I got from this is just that you're really dope, you're amazing, you have an incredible story, you're extremely humble, and you can obviously tell by you saying that I take every meeting, like, you're a better person than me. But I love you, you're an amazing human being. Thank you so much for being on my show. And guys, I hope you really enjoyed that. This is a living legend here, so take those tips and give me some percentage if you guys end up getting signed.
There you go.
Signing off.